Alright, so I had planned on doing a video about cooking a bear roast, and I was going to turn it into like a barbacoa, pulled, shredded kind of meat. But when I thawed out the meat, it wasn't marked ground, so once it was thawed, it was pretty obvious that it was ground bear. So we're gonna roll with it, and I'm gonna talk about cooking bear meat and sort of what goes into it, what to look for, and all of the things that I have learned since becoming a hunter's wife. First, I'm gonna start by cutting up an onion, and then I've got some frozen peppers that I will just chop and throw in there as well. I'm not a super big recipe follower. I'm more of like, just give me the ingredients and a guideline and I'm going to take it from there. I try to cook things that my family will like and enjoy, so by now I figured that out and I know what to omit and what to add to kind of make the meal something that they will like. If I didn't tell you this was bear meat, you would probably just think it was beef, especially with the way it's seasoned. It's going to taste a lot like ground beef tacos, but it does have a different flavor to it. Bear meat, you treat it, if I had to describe it, you would treat it like pork, in that it needs to be cooked all the way. Bear can carry trichomonas. Am I saying that right? Trichomonas. We have black bears here where we live, and that's what we hunt and eat. And I'm not sure that they're as likely to get it as, say, brown bears. But either way, it is a meat that needs to be cooked thoroughly and all the way through. It's not something you're going to eat rare or undercooked. I just err on the side of, if this was pork, how would I cook it? And I go from there. With ground beef or ground bear, see, it's easy to get them confused. With ground bear, you're just going to cook it all the way through. I mean, there's like you would any ground meat. First thing I'm going to do is I am going to drain as much blood out of the packaging as I can. When you're cooking things like deer and bear, which are the two wild game animals I'm most familiar with cooking, is you want as much of the blood to be out of the meat as possible. That can attribute to the meat being gamey, as well as fat. The fat left on the meat can also make the meat taste gamey. So when we are cleaning our bear or our deer, I don't want those to burn. When we are cleaning our bear or our deer, we get as much of the silver skin, tendons, fat off that we can. And then we'll render the fat down, and I tend to add that back in when I'm cooking. Something about the process we have found makes it a little less of a gamey flavor. In fact, when I cook bear and deer, I don't find it to be gamey. Our family doesn't find it to be gamey. Maybe that's because we're just used to the taste, or we figured out how to flavor it well. But either way, that's just what we do. I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe it'll help you. We are going to drain off as much of the blood as possible. I've got an empty sink here because I'm trying not to get this everywhere since it is bear meat. So I'm just going to cut a little piece off the bag and just drain it out. One thing I found with bear is, like, sometimes with ground beef you can get away with de-thawing it in the microwave. I personally don't do that. I'll just kind of cook it from frozen, or I'll stick it in some hot water just to kind of get it thawed enough to put it in the pan. You really can't do that with bear. You can kind of get away with it with deer, but with bear, it pretty well needs to be de-thawed all the way. This has a little bit of ice in it, but I think it will be all right.
Hey, I need that.
I did it one time, and my husband was like, what is this meat? It tasted off, so it needs to be thawed out. Yes, darling? I'm just watching. So this is a big pack of ground bear. I've got 2 here, so I'm not sure if I'm going to need to cook both. We have family in town, and they've never had bear meat. So this is a great way for people to try it because the flavor is kind of mixed in. It's not super overwhelming. We really enjoy the taste of bear meat. It tastes a lot like beef if I had to compare it to something, but it does have its own flavor. It's a really good meat. I also do this with venison. When we're cleaning our animal, we will just take kind of the odds and ends, bits and pieces that aren't going to make a roast, and we just grind it. So I do this with deer as well. I will cook ground deer the same way that I'm going to cook this ground bear into tacos. So I'm going to start adding it into the pan. Got my little helper here. And it is a really dark, rich red meat. And then I'll just wash my hands really, really well, and I'll clean out the inside of the sink with a disinfectant. This one got a little bit freezer burned. I'm just going to pick those pieces off.
Some of the blood was frozen.
Yeah. You're not going to get it all out, but every little bit you can get out really helps. And I think that's what made the meat taste off, was because the blood wasn't drained out. When you're vacuum sealing, I find that really we can go about a year, although meat around here doesn't last that long, before it starts freezer burning. And this was done a year ago last year. This is actually meat that was my mother-in-law's like, here, take this and cook this. I'm like, you got it. Yeah, this is all pretty. I don't know if we're going to get much off of this package. It's pretty.
Was it the big giant one?
No, it was the small one, but it's just really freezer burned, and the meat's just kind of a weird texture. Chickens will eat it, so it's not.
Luckily we got chickens.
Yeah, luckily we got chickens.
So we don't have to waste their food.
Nope, it won't go to waste. We'll just feed it out to them.
It will still get eaten.
Yeah, it still will get eaten. One thing nursing school taught me is how to wash my hands, right?
Nursing school taught you how to wash your hands?
Yes, we had to learn how to wash our hands.
Weird.
Mm-hmm.
But why did they have to learn how to wash your hands?
There's a proper way to wash your hands. Okay, all I did was I put a little bit of butter on the bottom of the pan when I cooked the peppers and the onions. And it's got plenty of liquid in it. It's not gonna stick or burn in this cast iron pan. I'm just using a Dutch oven because I've got a lot of meat that I'm working with, and I don't want to splatter it out everywhere. But it's not gonna be fatty or greasy like it would ground beef, because this is a pretty lean package. They're like, where's mine? You don't get any of this. This isn't for you. I'll fill your hay up in just a little bit. Trust me. They're not starving. They had enough food earlier. All right, so now they've got a nice little treat, some extra protein to get them through this cold snap. Hopefully we're about at the end of this like extremely cold weather for this time of year. One thing I want to interject here about freezer burn. They're having fun playing with the baby. Freezer burn meat. Sometimes that can happen if you didn't get a seal, a complete seal on your vacuum seal bag. So it's really important to check those as you're vacuum sealing. Sometimes it's easy to just do it and go because you're processing a lot of meat. But that's fairly common, especially with home vacuum sealers, that maybe there was like, it was kind of folded in a spot when it hit the heat element. So then when you pull it out, it separates and pulls open. Maybe there was some moisture in the bag. Just something to be aware of. It can happen. Fortunately for us, things never go to waste around here. We do have chickens and they are enjoying the extra protein. Another thing I have found that you have to do with your wild game is salt it really well. If you think you have enough salt, you probably don't. So taste it and make sure that it's how you like it. I think under seasoning this kind of meat plays a role in people not liking it. It's just, if it's not something you've grown up eating, it can be a bit of an acquired taste. I didn't grow up eating this way, so I've had to learn how to cook it to where we enjoy it. And I think that's true with anything you eat. If you can eat vegetables and feel the same way. My mother grew up hating Brussels sprouts. I never had Brussels sprouts, and I cooked them one time just to see what they tasted like, and it's one of our favorite vegetables. I actually have them growing on the garden right now. So season it and season it well. This still is not cooked all of the way, so I'm just going to start seasoning it and continuing to cook it. Since it's ground, I'm not going to check the temperature. There's not really a way to get an internal temperature. But if I was cooking a bare roast, a bigger piece of meat like a backstrap or a roast, I would want the internal temperature to be at least 160, 165, if not a little bit more. And then that way we can ensure anything that's in it's been killed off. But with ground bear, you're going to reach that and it's going to cook evenly all around it. Deer, you can eat pretty rare like you would beef. They're clean, considered a cleaner animal, so I don't worry too much. We actually like our deer a little bit on the medium side. If you overcook deer to like a very well done, it's gonna be leather no matter what you do, unless you're cooking it like a chuck roast where it's cooked low and slow. But if you're gonna cook it like you would a steak, don't cook it to well done. You'll have leather on your hands. So I've got salt in here. I'm gonna add some garlic powder. I'm gonna add some chili powder, some oregano, and we keep our tacos pretty basic around here. And then I'll take some of these like bigger pieces and I'll cut it in half and see where I'm at. It looks pretty well done. Alright, so it is cooked all the way through, and we will enjoy this with some taco shells or make some nachos and all the delicious toppings. So if you are new to hunting and you're not sure about what to do with all of the meat in your freezer, one thing I would suggest doing is grinding it up. You can use deer meat in place of any way you would use ground beef. I put it in our spaghetti, lasagna, I make tacos with it, I make Swedish meatballs with it. Now if you're going to do something like a meatball, I would highly suggest doing it with something like ground beef, where it's going to have a little bit more fat in it, because they can tend to be on the drier side. So however, you can do it. I've done it before. They've been fine, but just a little tip there. So when you grind it, you can use it like you would ground beef, same amount for each recipe. And it's a really great way to kind of get you used to cooking with it and used to the flavor. But in all seriousness, sometimes it's just going to take trial and error, figuring out a way that works for you, figuring out a way that tastes good to your family. So don't be afraid to go out there and try it. I will be showing more recipes, especially some of our favorite venison recipes. here later on in the month as I make them for my family. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you learned something here. It's not hard. You just have to get out there and try it. So thank you for watching, and may the Lord bless and keep you. Until next time.